Today, we're diving into the captivating realm of the supernatural, exploring one of my favorite aspects, ghosts. Growing up, I knew a closet in my grandparents' house that had once belonged to my late uncle. The old closet had thick, heavy paint that made its door stubborn to open or close. There was something unsettling about it, as if its darkness could swallow you whole. We'd tap on the door, waiting to see if we'd get a tap back. My religious mother would warn us against doing that, fearing the devil might respond if we did. I ran from that closet more times than I can count. If I hadn't believed in ghosts, I wouldn't have done that. If you're as curious about ghosts as I am, here's a summary of the most credible information I've gathered about them: ghosts and the scientific inquiry, evaluating the most credible evidence. The belief in ghosts, spirits of the dead lingering in the physical world, has existed across cultures for thousands of years. While mainstream science generally regards paranormal claims with skepticism, the persistence of these beliefs raises an important question. Is there any scientifically credible evidence supporting the existence of ghosts? To approach this, we must limit the scope to the most methodologically sound cases and data, evaluated by credible researchers in fields such as psychology, neuroscience, and physics. This essay explores the best-known lines of evidence, focusing on physical anomalies, psychological phenomena, and instrumental recordings that have intrigued scientists and researchers open to the possibility of ghosts. Before diving into specific cases, it's critical to acknowledge why ghost research is inherently difficult for science. The scientific method depends on repeatability, objectivity, and measurable outcomes. Ghost encounters, however, are often spontaneous, subjective, and emotionally charged. As a result, mainstream science tends to sideline paranormal research. Nevertheless, some experts and institutions have attempted to apply rigorous standards. The Society for Psychical Research, SPR, founded in 1882 in the UK, remains one of the most credible bodies studying paranormal phenomena using semi-scientific methods. Their work, along with contributions from neuroscientists, physicists, and psychologists, forms the backbone of what we might cautiously call credible ghost evidence. Let's get into the types of evidence. 1. Instrumental transcommunication, ITC, and electronic voice phenomena, EVP. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP, refers to unexplained voices or sounds recorded on audio devices that are not heard during the time of recording. Instrumental transcommunication, ITC, expands this to visual or radio-based anomalies. Here is some notable research and interesting cases. Dr. Konstantin Raudive, a Latvian psychologist, conducted over 100,000 EVP experiments and published his findings in Breakthrough 1971. He and his team recorded voices under controlled conditions that seemed to respond intelligently. Sarah Estep, founder of the American Association of Electronic Voice Phenomena, AAEVP, catalogued hundreds of EVPs that she argued displayed patterns inconsistent with random noise. While many recordings are ambiguous and subject to pareidolia interpreting random sounds as familiar voices, some controlled EVP sessions have been compelling. For example, researchers like Dr. David Fontana, a fellow of the British Psychological Society, supported EVP research, citing recordings that appeared to feature context-appropriate responses in sealed environments. Skeptics argue that radio interference or human error can explain many of these anomalies, but proponents counter that controlled conditions and non-random responses differentiate real EVP from noise. 2. Quantified environmental anomalies in hauntings. Ghost hunters often report changes in temperature, cold spots, electromagnetic fields, and even light levels in areas associated with hauntings. Some researchers have tried to document these anomalies with calibrated instruments. Here is some notable research and Michael Persinger's God Helmet experiments. Persinger a neuroscientist at Laurentian University, created a helmet that used weak magnetic fields to stimulate the temporal lobes. Participants often reported sensed presences, supporting the idea that brain activity may be influenced by localized EM fields, possibly explaining ghost sightings or enabling them. Dr. William Roll and the haunting in Columbus, Georgia. Roll investigated repeated poltergeist-type activity in a family home. He documented changes in the environment, such as spontaneous movement of objects, while measuring unusual EM fluctuations, though he couldn't definitively attribute them to ghosts. And parapsychologist Barry Taff's 1970s research in the entity case in Los Angeles also involved quantitative measurements of ambient electromagnetic anomalies that correlated with reported activity. Although not definitive, some of these studies show correlations between environmental anomalies and reported hauntings. Critics point out that such phenomena might have non-paranormal causes, including faulty wiring or geophysical disturbances. However, the fact that they consistently co-occur with subjective reports in some cases keeps researchers interested. 3. Corroborated apparitional experiences. Anecdotes are not data, but when multiple people independently report seeing the same apparition. Under similar circumstances, the claim becomes harder to dismiss outright. Here is some notable research. At Cheltenham, Ghost, 1882 to 1886, one of the most thoroughly documented cases by the SPR. Over 20 people claimed to see a female figure in Victorian dress walking through the house in a repeated pattern. These reports came from visitors with no prior knowledge of the haunting. And Philip. Experiment, 1972. Canadian researchers tried to create a ghost through group meditation and suggestion. Eventually, the group began receiving knocks and table movements in response to questions. While this could indicate collective psychological influence, it also raised questions about psychokinesis or the influence of belief on reality. Corroborated experiences are rare, but when they occur among multiple witnesses with no prior exposure or prompting, they raise the evidentiary bar. While still anecdotal, the consistency of reports and detailed documentation by researchers make some of these cases hard to ignore entirely. 4. Near-death experiences, NDEs, and shared death experiences. While not ghosts per se, near-death experiences sometimes include seeing deceased relatives, floating outside the body, or passing through ghostly realms. More controversially, shared death experiences involve living people witnessing or sensing something during another person's death. Here is some notable research. Dr. Raymond Moody and Dr. Bruce Grayson have documented hundreds of cases of NDEs, many with consistent imagery, tunnels, lights, spiritual beings. Dr. Peter Fenwick, a neuropsychiatrist, reported cases where family members sensed a loved one's death before receiving any confirmation. These experiences are often explained neurologically as brain reactions to trauma or oxygen deprivation. However, cases where experiencers accurately describe events in another room or recount conversations that occurred while clinically dead have yet to be fully explained. Such evidence indirectly supports the idea that consciousness might persist after death, a foundation for ghost existence. 5. Ghost sightings by credible witnesses. Not all ghost sightings come from thrill seekers. Some of the most interesting reports come from trained professionals, police officers, military personnel, pilots, whose testimony carries more weight due to their perceived reliability. Here are some examples. RAF Airfield. Haunting Uke. Multiple service members reported seeing a spectral airman walking across a runway. The sighting was investigated and documented by military officials in the 1950s and 1960s. And Morris Pratt Institute, USA. Founded in the late 1800s, This Center for Spiritualist Research documented reports from academics and clergy who engaged in controlled seances and claimed verifiable communications with the dead. Even with credible witnesses, memory and perception can be flawed. But when multiple trained observers report the same event, especially under non-hysterical conditions, those reports deserve a closer look. 6. Theoretical. Physics and consciousness. While not direct evidence, some theoretical work in quantum mechanics and consciousness studies lends possible frameworks for understanding ghost phenomena. Here are some relevant theories. Quantum consciousness. Theories by physicists like Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff suggest that consciousness may involve quantum processes in brain microtubules, which may persist or leak into space-time under specific conditions. Multiverse theory. Some speculative physicists suggest ghosts might be bleed-throughs from parallel universes, where entities or energies partially overlap with our reality. These ideas remain highly speculative and largely untested, but they do offer potential models for how consciousness or information might survive bodily death or manifest in ways consistent with ghost sightings. 7. Long-term studies by academic institutions. A few universities have supported long-term paranormal research. Here is some examples in University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, DOPS. Founded by psychiatrist Dr. Ian Stevenson, this division has focused on cases suggestive of reincarnation and spirit survival. Some of the children studied gave verifiable details about past lives without prior exposure. Edinburgh University Kessler Parapsychology Unit. This center studies extrasensory perception, survival after death, and anomalous experiences in controlled lab settings. While much of this research is met with skepticism, it follows academic protocols and uses statistical analysis and control groups. Though controversial, it adds a layer of scientific legitimacy to paranormal inquiry that distinguishes it from tabloid ghost hunting. The scientific case for ghosts remains far from settled. There is no universally accepted empirical proof of disembodied spirits, and much of the evidence is circumstantial, anecdotal, or suggestive rather than conclusive. However, dismissing the subject outright ignores the small but compelling body of data that continues to intrigue open-minded researchers. From instrumental recordings and environmental anomalies to near-death experiences and credible eyewitness testimony, a constellation of phenomena exists that traditional science has yet to fully explain. Whether these experiences point to spirits of the dead or unknown aspects of consciousness and physics, they merit further investigation. Science advances by questioning boundaries, not by ignoring them. While ghosts may never be captured in a lab, the mystery they represent continues to challenge our understanding of life, death, and what it means to be conscious. And in that challenge lies the possibility, not of superstition, but of discovery. I hope you found this report informative and engaging. Admittedly, it's a condensed version of a much larger body of data, and I'm aware that some critical points may have been omitted. The sheer volume of information made it challenging to fit everything into this brief presentation. If upon reflection you feel that I've neglected a vital aspect or overlooked a crucial detail, please don't hesitate to reach out and share your thoughts. Your input is invaluable in helping me refine and improve the report.